Now Buddhaya. We all know that forgiving is difficult, right? It is easier said than done. Now, even in forgiving, it is very easy to forgive for the mistakes that other people have done to us. But it is really, really difficult to forgive for our own mistakes, for the mistakes that we have done in the past, right? And so many people, most of us worry about the things that has happened in the past, about the things that we said in the past, about how we act in the past, how we lived in the past. And we get stuck in these mistakes and we waste a lot of time, right? But the Buddha teaches us a way to look at these mistakes and how to move on and how to move through them and how to grow through them. So from this video, we are going to discuss about how can we deal with the mistakes that we have done in the past and how can we correct them and how can we deal with them. So I want to share with you how the Buddha advised for the monks who have done mistakes and how they got the advice to deal with it. So the Buddha says, Buddhissa bhikkhu ariyassa vinaye yo acchayang acchayato disva yatha dhammang patikaroti ayathing sangvarang apajati. The Buddha says, for it is growth in the training of nobles to recognize a mistake for what it is, deal with it properly, and commit to restrain in the future. So the Buddha says, the first step of understanding and first step of dealing with a mistake that has done in the past is to accept it, to see the mistake as it is, to see the wrong thing as a wrong thing. This is called acceptance. Now, one of the most difficult things for us to do is to accept that we have done mistakes. Why? Because there is something that hurt us in our mind, right? It is a really big problem, and that is nothing but the ego. We always think, okay, we are right, we are correct, and I will never do mistakes. But the reality is, we all are humans, we all have imperfections, we all have defilements in our minds, so that we make mistakes, right? There's a saying that says, as long as you make mistakes, you are human. So understand, you're a human and you make mistakes, and the nature of your mind is to make wrong choices, wrong things, and do the mistakes. For that, you're okay with it, right? So that you understand the nature of your life, that I'm a human and I make mistakes, so you accept it. When you accept it, you don't hate yourself. Now the problem is not the mistake. The problem is worrying about it, brooding over it, holding on to it, and wishing that, I wish I couldn't do that. I wish I didn't say that. No, I wish I didn't act like that. So that we waste a long time, right? A valuable time that we can use to create something better for our life. So that the Buddha says, accept the mistake, right? Accept that you have done the mistake. Remember, acceptance is the first step of healing, right? Acceptance is the first step of healing, so that you don't hate yourself, so that you are not in war with yourself. Now you open up your mind to move on. So the Buddha says, see the wrong thing as a wrong thing, right? See the mistake as a mistake and accept that you have done it. So the first step of dealing with a past mistake or wrong thing that you have done in the past is to accept it. So after accepting, now what to do? The Buddha says, now reveal it to someone who can understand you, right? Confess it. How to do that? You find someone who can understand you, right? Who can give you a good advice and who doesn't judge you, and say to him that I did this mistake, right? This mistake was happened from me. Now, why should you confess it? Now, when you confess it, you're sharing what is inside you with someone who can understand you. Okay? There are many good things when you confess. One thing is that your mind become free, right? Because after doing a mistake, if a mistake had happened, one thing that keep criticizing us is our mind, ourself, right? So that understand, when you confess, you can free your mind, right? Your heart is not complaining you, so that you opened up yourself, right? That is one good thing that happens when you confess. And also, you get good advice from them, how to deal with it. Sometimes, for some problems, we cannot deal with alone, right? You don't have to deal with each and every problem alone, right? You can ask for help. One thing that it is really, really, really difficult to do is to ask for helps, right? But if we ask it, the helps will be given from the right people, right? That is why the Buddha says, do not go around saying your mistakes to everyone, but find at least one person, right? We all can find at least one person who can understand us, who doesn't judge us from our mistakes, and also who can give us good advice. Okay, that is the good thing about having noble friends around you. Okay, so the Buddha says, confess it. Open up yourself to someone who is very wise and who can give you advice. And then the Buddha says, the next step is to take right actions to not to happen it again, not to make that mistake again and again. So the Buddha says, Yatha dhammang patikaroti, I think sangvarang apajati. To be restrained in the future, to not to do that mistake and not to make that mistake happen again and again. And that is why they say that 100 times the same mistake is regression, right? If you do the same mistake 100 times, then there is no development, right? But 100 times different mistakes is progression, right? We will do thousands and thousands of mistakes in this life, but from every mistake, if we take the decision to not to happen it again, right? And you learn from it. And you will make mistakes again and again, but you learn from them. Understand that every difficult situation, every mistake that you make in life is a great lesson. But the problem is, we think that we should not be making mistakes, we should not be doing wrong things, and we think that we will be perfect forever. But in reality, we are not. So that acceptance, confession, and taking right action to not to it happen again is the way to deal with the mistakes. Understand, as long as you are human, I will say this again, as long as you are human, you will make mistakes. Accept them, confess them, and then take right action to not to it to happen again, so that you can learn from your mistakes and you can grow through them. Keep this in your mind. Namo Buddhaya.